Beloved 8% Hard AF Seltzer is now live in over 1,200 locations across the United States. We're now available in Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, North Carolina, Ohio, and Texas. Go to hardafseltzer.com today, click on the store locator, enter your city or zip, and find the nearest location closest to you. Welcome to Drinkin Bros, presented by GhostBed.com. Yeah, welcome to Drinkin Bros, kids. Got a big Tuesday show for you here. D'Anthony, right before the 4th of July. We got a real American on the show today. We've got the Attorney General from Missouri, Andrew Bailey, who's filing lawsuits left and right. Shutting down the libs. Welcome to the show, Mr. Bailey. How are you?
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me on. Really appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. Did I call you General Bailey or did I call you Attorney General? Like, how does that work?
Man, it's just Andrew. I was only a captain in the Army. I feel like I missed a couple ranks there.
But you're an Attorney General, so, like, I feel like you made it up. Like, you at least got a general in the title eventually. You know? I think you're good there.
Yeah. You know, just Andrew's fine.
Okay, just Andrew's fine. Lots to chat about today. First of all, let's get to the big story that everybody's melting down over SCOTUS's pick or their decision yesterday. Forgive me on this immunity case involving presidents, and I'm going to say presidents and not just Trump. Everybody's using just Trump in all of these headlines and clickbait titles and all this stuff. But this is in regards to all presidents. And when this happened, I had said on the show that this was a no-brainer. He was president on January 6th. He should be immune. I don't understand what the backlash is.
Yeah, I don't either. They merely interpreted what we all knew the Constitution to already say, which is that there's broad authority for the president to enforce the laws and meet any exigencies, foreign and domestic, and he's got to have legal immunity under that broad authority to meet those exigencies and to make tough decisions to enforce the laws provided by Congress. Other public officials have similar immunity. This isn't groundbreaking or novel. We always knew this to be true. They just restated what the Constitution already said. It's just this is the first fact pattern of this nature to come before them that was this concise. But there's a couple other observations here which I think are really, really important. Number one, Joe Biden's press conference yesterday, late afternoon, early evening. Did anyone tell him he was missing the early bird special? I mean, this guy's out at, 4:59, 5 p.m., missing early dinner. That's got to be uncommon for him. Didn't know he had it in him. Clearly not a whole lot of gas in the tank, though, because he only went for about 5 minutes. And
what do you guys have in Missouri? Is it Perkins up there? What is it?
Perkins. I mean, you think of any of the like Luby's down in Texas, any of those traditional kind of cafeterias. You know Joe Biden's going for the tapioca pudding at the early bird special, and he had to forego that to do this wonderful press conference for us. He's the one that should be cracking champagne open. This protects him.
Yeah, it's shocking. End quote. By the way, because that's what he read off the teleprompter.
End of quote.
End of quote.
We've really got to Ron Burgundy this guy. Just like, how much is it going to cost to bribe one of the teleprompter writers to put in some wild ass shit just to see if he'll say it?
I think we're close. I think it's going to happen here. I think it's going to happen.
At what point is this elder abuse that his family is allowing him, to trot him out there, falling upstairs, doesn't know where he is, meandering off? It looks like it's getting worse by the day. The White House has to cover for him and say it's all AI deepfakes, but we can see it with our own eyes, and there's witnesses in the room that can corroborate what we're being shown on film. I mean, this is really sad for him, and shame on his family for committing this kind of elder abuse.
Now, yes, sad for him, happy for Republicans. I mean, I raged that night after the debates. I hope he stays in. I don't want anything else other than Joe Biden to keep continuing to talk and get out there. So selfishly, as a big Trump guy, I want him to stay in this race. I want end of quotes. I want all of these things to keep happening on a daily basis and then just drive this into the ground so we have an election that no one can cheat on in 2024, where the numbers should be so high for Trump that we don't have to worry about this anymore.
The scuttlebutt now is that Hunter has become part of his inner circle.
Yep. Yeah.
The crackhead?
Yeah, that's who you want giving you solid advice.
Fuck yeah, dude. Why not just get Dave Chappelle in character as whatever that crackhead character used to play was? I can't remember his name.
Yeah. Or we just put, old school Charlie Sheen in your office as your associate, and then just see what happens. Andrew, I think that would be fun. But break it down for everybody else what immunity actually means for every president.
Yeah, immunity means that the president can't be sued or prosecuted for official acts he conducts in his capacity as president of the United States. In other words, he is immune from liability, civil or criminal, for the core functions of the presidency. That doesn't mean that he can order the assassination of a political opponent or commit a military coup d'etat. Those things aren't core functions of the presidency, so he would have waived immunity for exceeding the scope of his authority in those instances. This is no different than police officers are immune from civil suit as long as they're following the law and obeying the mandates of the United States Constitution that protect our individual liberties. They waive that immunity when they either exceed or violate the scope of their statutory authority or violate well-settled constitutional principles of search and seizure. And so again, this is not a novel concept in the law. What's novel is that the left is having a fit about it. And again, you got to think about how these sorts of things boomerang. I mean, we used to celebrate the rules of the game above the players and the outcomes. The left has jettisoned that approach. And, I got to be looking around at red state prosecutors and attorneys general and saying, hey, who had an open investigation against Joe Biden for his refusal to secure our southern border, and what role his hanging an open sign at the southern border played as an accomplice to fentanyl and human trafficking moving into our states and making our communities less safe? Well, Joe Biden, again, break out the champagne, man. You win under this Supreme Court decision because now you're immune from prosecution like that. So the rest of us have to kind of find new lines of attack to ensure that he's held accountable for his wrongdoing.
Yeah, like the Constitution, impeachment or voting, not fucking lawfare, for Christ's sake. By the way, there's some breaking news. The Manhattan court has postponed Trump's sentencing to September 18th. To allow for this new information to be processed, essentially.
For the Supreme Court immunity ruling. I'm reading that as well. So what does that mean exactly, Andrew? That they go in and look at the different elements of these cases and the different amount of, because I think it was 34 counts. Did they go back in and see which counts have to be thrown out now?
Well, the 34 counts are all the same thing, falsifying business records. And the reason that they're felonies is in support of an additional crime that no one knows exactly what it is, right? So I don't know. This and all this, by the way, happened before he was president. It was while he was a candidate. So this ruling would not apply.
So why would they say that due to the Supreme Court's immunity ruling, we have to push this sentencing to September, Andrew?
Well, I think that what the Trump defense team is going to argue is that the immunity should cover some of the acts for which President Trump was unlawfully convicted in that 34-count indictment. But I agree with your analysis, which is that those acts for which he was charged and committed and convicted occurred before he was president. And remember Clinton v. Jones, the Paula Jones lawsuit, where the court said, look, the president can be sued even though he's a sitting president for things he did before he took that office. Well, the same kind of principle applies here. I think there's a legal analysis that has to occur. But look, don't trust Alvin Bragg any further than you can throw him. I mean, what is he doing? He's interfering with our election, and now he's pushing that interference to September. I mean, this is absolutely criminal what he's doing. What he's going to try to do is sentence President Trump to prison in September when we have less time to fix the problem before the November election. And there's a well-settled doctrine in law called the Purcell Doctrine, which advocates for court systems staying out of election interference as the closer in time you get to an election, because what the court doesn't want to do through its rulings is inject any kind of lack of clarity into the election process. And right now people are saying, well, gosh, I don't know if I can vote for President Trump. Can he still be on the ballot if he's a convicted felon? And we're pushing those kinds of decisions out later to September. Moreover, the gag order will remain in place until at least that time. This is a travesty and a miscarriage of justice, and is continuing to deprive the rest of us the right to hear from President Trump and engage in a national election in the heat of a campaign in the most consequential presidential election in this nation's history. This is ultimately a very dangerous position for this litigation.
Do you think?
I agree, because this puts it at 50 days now, Dan.
Yeah.
50 days. So, you're getting right into the October surprise area elements of most of these elections.
Yeah, I mean, do you think there's going to be the Purcell Doctrine? Do you think there's going to be some appeal to that at the Supreme Court level? Because it's been used within the last 20 years or so, I think, in Arizona and in the Ninth Circuit, if I'm not mistaken. But I don't know. I don't know when the application would make sense for this. Like, somebody would have to, like the Trump campaign, or somebody would have to sue Alvin Bragg specifically, or at least the Manhattan court or something, right?
There might be somebody thinking of that exact legal argument.
Who would it be?
Let me say this. Look, let's be honest. Purcell deals with a court's interpretation of election law. This is a little different, right? But at the same time, the principle applies that you've got a rogue prosecutor and a collusive judiciary in the state of New York that's upending a national election and interfering with the rest of our ability to participate. And like in the state of Missouri, we caucused several months ago. And by statute, we have electors who have been selected to go to the party conventions and cast their ballot for presidential candidates. Well, if they're denied access to those candidates because those candidates are tied up in a Manhattan courtroom or silenced, then that's depriving Missourians of our ability to participate in the election.
Now, what is this ruling from the Supreme Court do to your lawsuit against the state of New York?
Nothing. We are going to proceed forward, and we're going to have that on file ASAP. Again, it is about protecting Missouri's sovereign interest in participating in a national election. And you can look at, there's two kind of components here. Look at the past harm. Look at the time in which President Trump was in that Manhattan courtroom and we were deprived of access to him. How many events did he have to cancel or never schedule because he couldn't be on the campaign trail because he had to be in that New York courtroom, despite the fact that his due process rights, First Amendment rights, and Sixth Amendment rights of jury unanimity were all violated by prosecutors who were politically motivated and should have been disqualified in the first place. But then also look at the fact that all that time, the First Amendment protects not only a speaker's right to say things, but a listener's right to hear them. We had First Amendment rights in Missouri and across the nation to hear from a presidential candidate that we've selected. How much more will those rights be infringed upon and violated in September if President Trump is sentenced to prison or even put on house arrest or any kind of onerous conditions of probation to include community service that ties up his time and limits his speech? And again, between now and September sentencing, the gag order is going to remain in place, and that's violating our rights and our ability to hear from a presidential candidate.
Yeah, they can gag on my balls.
Yeah, and they have before in the past, and they will again.
I want to hear about Matthew Colangelo, who is a fucking U.S. attorney who somehow found himself in the Manhattan court system. A guy who used to work for the Obama campaign back in the day, or Obama administration, somehow made his way down the ladder, right, into this case against Trump. How's that work? Is that normal?
That is not normal. He was deployed. He was deployed as a resource from Biden's crooked Department of Justice to participate and lead the illicit witch hunt prosecution at the trial court level on behalf of Alvin Bragg, the Manhattan District Attorney. Look, Alvin Bragg, if you go to his website, the Manhattan DA's office, it says one standard of justice for all. How can that guy keep a straight face when he says that? We know that both prosecutors, Matthew Colangelo and Alvin Bragg, were personally and politically motivated to tie up President Trump and keep him off the campaign trail and silence him. They should have been disqualified from this case, and a separate prosecutor should have been appointed to determine whether or not there was a charge. There wasn't. And the system would have self-corrected, but was not allowed to do so because those prosecutors were allowed to proceed with that illicit witch hunt prosecution. But that evidence alone establishes circumstances that give rise to an incurable impropriety and inject a reversible error into that trial.
Yeah, in addition to the fact that both Letitia James, your counterpart in New York, and Alvin Bragg both ran, part of their platform running for office was to go after Trump. Not for anything specifically.
Yep.
Just to get him. We got to get him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And then the odd part was Andrew Cuomo, who was the former Attorney General of New York, was on Bill Maher last week saying, I never would have brought this case forward at all. And he thinks the American people and the people of New York view it as a sham, and that he thinks it was a colossal mistake. So who do you believe here and why, I guess, is the question.
Yeah, I do believe it was a colossal mistake. Not only is it not a legally valid conviction, again, because of the incurable impropriety imputed by the prosecutor's behavior, but also the numerous constitutional violations, again, due process violation, First Amendment violation, jury unanimity problem under the Sixth Amendment. So not only do you have all of those problems that lead to a reversible error in the conviction, but you've got just kind of the political ramifications. Let's put this in historical context. It hasn't been since 1789 when you've seen this kind of weaponization of the government to trample on people's rights and silence political opponents. I'm talking, of course, of the Federalists' enactment of the Alien Sedition Act, which was designed to stop any kind of argument against the Federalist quasi-war naval engagement with France. 2 years later, the Federalists were swept from power. and the Democratic Republicans came to office, because Americans understood that this not only violates our constitutional principles, but is fundamentally unfair and is not who we are as a nation. I think the same thing's going to happen to the left on this lawfare issue, guys. Even folks that may disagree with President Trump on policy matters understand this isn't fair, this isn't right. If they can do it to him, they sure can do it to us.
Now, so
not on the left.
The immunity question is this. It was recognized, not adjudicated, right? Which is a subtle difference to some, but for people that understand the law and know that you're just enumerating something and not deciding it. That's not the same thing. You're just saying, yes, this immunity has always existed. So it now goes to the lower court for both the prosecutor and the judge, if in any grand jury indictment that might happen, to decide what is and isn't an official act and to make that case to a grand jury, right? An unlawful order. So the president is the commander-in-chief of the military. That is their primary function. An unlawful order is an unofficial act by definition, correct? So this blustering, I mean, I can't believe that Sotomayor, who, by the way, is a DEI hire, she's the dumbest motherfucker on that court, even dumber than the one that doesn't know what a woman is.
I don't know.
Way dumber.
That's a
way
toss-up.
dumber. That was a political thing versus a dumbness thing, in my opinion. So she writes that the president can just deploy SEAL Team 6 to go assassinate political rivals. Where in the fucking outline of the presidency in the Constitution does it say they have the right to assassinate people? As a matter of fact, only one president has done that, and it was Barack Obama.
When he was bombing civilians in Yemen?
Well, not just civilians in Yemen, but American citizens. Three of them, right? The father, Anwar al-Awlaki, and two of his children he killed as well with drone strikes, all American citizens. So, this is... The fact that one of the 9 people that have been chosen to adjudicate the law for 330 to 350 million people is this dumb and doesn't understand basic law we're in an unprecedented time in American history right now.
Well, Andrew, do you think it is on party lines here, and that's what her party wanted because that's who she was elected by? Because I just don't get it. I read that dissent as well yesterday, and I just don't understand it. So. Obviously, you know the court system better than we do, although I have been arrested quite a few times. Kidding. But behind the scenes, what is it like once they get in there? Is there arguing back and forth? Are they writing these separately? How does that work with the Supreme Court?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think it's different for every case. I think they would prefer there to be unanimous decisions and consistent reasoning. I think where it gets really scary is when you have majority on the outcome, but not the rationale. So you get a plurality opinion. Then as a litigator, it gets really hard to know what the law is. But yeah, look, there's a fundamental disagreement in this country about what our Constitution means, what it says, and how it should be interpreted, and the purpose behind it, and why we have a government and what role the government should play in our everyday lives. And I think that those basic fundamental precepts and principles need to be part of the confirmation process. Like, we get really into the weeds during confirmation on, how would you define this? How would you interpret? Let's look at previous decisions. What's your view of stare decisis? These kind of like ephemeral law school academic questions. But basic fundamental principles like, hey, look, our rights come from God, not man. The Constitution exists to protect us from the government. The government exists to protect our rights. Anyone who can't say those things should not be elevated to the bench, period.
So what do you think about term limits for Supreme Court justices? Because we don't give lifetime appointments to anybody else.
Yeah, here in Missouri, by state constitution, our judges are forced into retirement at 70. I know there's been a movement at different periods in American history to amend Article 3 qualifications for the federal judiciary. At the end of the day, that's a constitutional question that would have to be done by constitutional amendment. I think that my analysis is this: the words in the Constitution mean what they meant at the time they were written down. And so the proper interpretive methodology is to look at, like, for instance, the privileges and immunities clause and say, okay, well, what was a privilege and immunity as originally understood at the time it's written down? And what is that list of privileges and immunities? Now, the thing being claimed today is as similar to or dissimilar from that list. And that's how you adjudicate those disputes and how you interpret the Constitution. And anyone that can't be on board with that or can't do that or is not doing that, certainly subjects themselves to impeachment based on a refusal to apply the law as written.
Now, if you're looking at what AOC said yesterday after all this shook out, that we should impeach the Supreme Court. Is that even a possibility legally?
Not really. I mean, there have been attempts in the past to impeach federal judges, and they've not really been very successful. They're very infrequent. It has to be really extreme cases. I mean, the bar for impeachment is high. I think again, what we need to rally around here is how are we going to interpret the Constitution? How are we going to interpret laws? What are your basic principles and precepts? And then let's just make sure we're flooding the judiciary with like-minded individuals that we can all agree on that. Consistency, clarity, equal protection, these things need to matter. We ought to impeach AOC. I mean, this woman is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, her support and advocacy for terrorist organizations should disqualify her for public office and make her public enemy number one.
Yeah, I agree. She's in there for looks and looks only, and that's kind of about it. That I'll give her.
I mean, rapping skills too.
Rapping skills weren't great the other day.
Yeah,
I'm gonna be honest
but
with you. They weren't great on stage.
Like who do you think in Congress was better?
Oh, me personally?
Yeah.
Come on. Boebert, dude. You know Boebert. When she was quoting 50 Cent lyrics the other day with Fitty himself in the office, she gets down behind the scenes. And, she's probably dropped the N-word a few times behind the scenes, and that's fine, whatever. But I think the biggest meltdown from the left has now come after that debate where, the media, his own party, everybody's thrown Biden under the bus, and now they're looking at the Supreme Court and these decisions saying, all right, we got Justice Thomas, is 75 years old. If Trump gets in there, he could replace him. Justice Alito, 73 years old. Good shot that he might retire as well, and then Trump could replace them. And then you got Sotomayor at 69, and then Roberts is also 69. Trump could potentially, in my opinion, probably get 3 more justices in, and that would be the ultimate meltdown of all time. I think Thomas has been waiting it out for Trump to get back in so that he can retire. I know behind the scenes they asked Sotomayor to step down and not do an RBG type sit. She declined, said she loved the job and wanted to keep going. But I think that's what the panic is this week, not just with the immunity decision, but with Biden's debate performance and realizing that they've probably lost the 2024 election.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me at all. I do think you look at how you flip the court and the Trump's ability to do that in the first instance with help from, the Senate Majority Leader, Mitch McConnell's willingness to hold out against Obama's attempt to appoint Merrick Garland, which thank God we didn't end up with that disaster.
Holy shit. Yeah.
Not sure that the alternatives were better, but give Trump the ability and the opportunity to make his nominations and just secure the legacy of the court. I think that's going to be crucial. I think that's absolutely one of the reasons people should go to the polls. And let me say this, while we're on this subject, elections have consequences. Elections matter. Again, it's an irreducible axiomatic principle that rights have responsibilities. We have the right to vote. We have the responsibility to get up and go do it. And here's the problem I've got right now is that there are too many Americans, specifically gun owners, hunters, who are definitely enjoying the rights afforded to us by God and protected by our Constitution, but are not participating in the democratic process. I'm not asking for much. I'm just asking for one day. Go vote. Go to Vote for America, and you can register to vote anywhere in the nation, but go beyond that and go find a friend, a relative, a drinking buddy, and take them to the ballot box with you and get them to vote. We could reshape this country. We could restore the greatness of America once and for all if we would all get up and work together and fight one day. And all I'm asking us to do is exercise the rights given to us by God and afforded to us under the Constitution.
I agree. And if you don't go out and vote that day, we are who we vote for as a country, so don't bitch about it. You almost don't. You should have all your social media stripped away. All that's gone. I don't want to hear your opinions on anything.
I think we should be able to drive by your house and spray you with a fire hose.
Or a scarlet
once
letter.
a week, maybe, right?
Yeah.
Like you didn't vote to stop this, so here I am. Spray, right?
Yeah, and then do whatever you want. Light some dog shit on the front porch.
All the old gags.
Away. All the old gags.
We'll
bring them all back.
What is it called when you ring the doorbell and fuck off?
Ding dong ditch.
Bob, you got a name for that? What Bob, you're a your parents are both lawyers, so I know you broke the law a lot as a child. Tell me some things you've done.
Oh boy, where to
admit it to the Attorney General of your state, you piece of shit.
Yeah. That's fine. That's the state I feel the most comfortable breaking the law in. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
No, true. You go to Washington. Actually, there are no laws there.
Yeah, there are no laws. There are no laws. What do the people of Missouri think about the lawsuits you filed. Because for me, I read this. I didn't know who you were. You're not in my state, obviously, so I don't really follow, forgive me, attorney generals in other states. But when I saw that you were filing this lawsuit in New York, I thought, thank God, but why are you the only person doing it? How do your constituents feel about this?
People in the state of Missouri are excited that there is a fighter in office at the Missouri AG's office who's willing to lead this effort, lead this fight, again, to protect our state sovereignty and our ability to participate in a national presidential election on equal footing with other states. And we can't let that rogue prosecutor and collusive judiciary in the state of New York destroy our rights to hear from and have access to a presidential candidate in a national presidential election. I would say that you get a lot of people in the legal profession who went straight through college and into law school, and they're kind of law school tough. Like they read textbooks and like, we're going to fight for some dissent in some really niche admin law case, and we'll show the world. And there's a difference between that and warrior tough, as you guys know. And so, like, I bring a different kind of perspective, having served in the military and deployed to Iraq and led soldiers. That execution matters to me. Being willing to fight the good fight matters to me. When I took an oath to protect and defend the Constitution against enemies foreign and domestic, I was willing to put my life on the line to do it. And I take that oath seriously today. It's not something that expires. And so that's why I'm willing to lead some of these fights that require courage and bravery and the willingness to step out on a ledge and charge the hill. And, my hope would be that it would inspire others to take up the mantle of responsibility and to fight back as well, and to find every tool at our disposal, every weapon in our arsenal to fight back against this illicit, unconstitutional lawfare that's really an attack on our democratic process.
Hey, did you hear? So Stephanopoulos is interviewing Biden this weekend.
Correct.
But not live.
Oh, you don't say. They're going to edit it. There's a huge shock. That's breaking news as well.
God damn it, man. Come on. Can we not do this?
Well, we are.
That's
going to happen.
There have been a couple of people, credit to Jake Tapper, actually, for continuing and so the post-debate fallout has been a very interesting journey. It went from, oh my God, we've got to get this guy out of here, to, oh, it wasn't that bad. It was just one night, to now, like, people on the left are like, no, it was bad.
Yeah.
Right. Like, there's only a couple of them, though. A lot of people are making excuses. Like, I'd rather have the guy who has a stutter than the liar or the criminal. Like, all right, boy, let's dial it back here. It's not a stutter, right? There's the good and bad thing about doing the job that we do is that there are literally thousands of hours of us.
Sure.
Saying and doing dumb shit.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That can be used against us probably in a court of law at some point.
Sure can. Hopefully not Missouri, Andrew.
Yeah, well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Past bad acts are not relevant to current behavior.
There we go. I'm going to need a full pardon. The problem with Biden having been in politics for 50 years is that we have hundreds of hours of him speaking and never stuttering, ever. Yeah. So that's nonsense, right? This seems like if Alex Jones can be sued for $1 billion for putting out bad information, what can news media be sued for convincing us that the guy who's the leader of the free world is competent? Because he's clearly not, right? They're lying about that. They know it's not true, and they're doing it anyways.
Mm-hmm. I think with the Stephanopoulos interview, that is breaking news that just came up, that it's going to be recorded and edited here. I think there was a meeting over the weekend. The family did decide that he's going to stay in, and I think the left is stuck with him. Because, I mean, the rules of the election on the DNC side. He's the one that has to step down, and I don't think he's going to do it. So I think they're going back to the drawing board here and then going to prop up some interviews that are edited, try to make him look healthy and alive and alert and awake and all that stuff. And it's not going to do anything, unfortunately. But Stephanopoulos, if you're him, and he's been talking shit against Trump for years and years at this point, how do you justify this and not going live?
I don't know.
I don't either. Andrew, I want to ask you something about when you file these lawsuits, and we'll get to the other ones here in a second. Who pays for this? When you sue New York, is it the taxpayers of Missouri that fund this lawsuit? Who is this on that side?
Yeah, it's all within the confines of the budget that's authorized by the people's elected representatives here in the state of Missouri for the Missouri Attorney General's office. So we don't go out of budget. The appropriations bill is a law. So I am, bound by the appropriations provided by the people's elected representatives here in the state.
Okay, gotcha. I want to move on to the next one.
Wait,
here.
I want to talk about you so everybody knows about this Supreme Court ruling about the federal government, particularly DHS, CIA, FBI, essentially ordering social media companies to censor and interfere in our elections, right? Mm-hmm. It got kicked back down to the lower court, and I think the primary cause was a standing issue. Am I correct about that? Can you explain what happened there?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, the mainstream media is completely deceiving the American public on this case. They're trying to convince everyone that the court sided with Biden. That's a very myopic, limited, one-dimensional view of what happened. What the court found, based on the evidence we adduced in the preliminary phases of discovery to get a preliminary injunction, was that there was, in fact, a coercive relationship between the federal government and big tech, and that the government had crossed the line, violated the First Amendment rights of all Americans by silencing voices on big tech through coercion of social media companies to censor conservative speech, core political speech, all protected by the First Amendment. But the court found that the evidence that we had available to us at that moment in time was limited to censorship in 2020 and 2021. Well, that's because the court's been sitting on the case for the past year. And so the court said, look, go back down to the trial court level, commence merits discovery. And merits discovery is a much broader instrument to root out the censorship enterprise and hold wrongdoers accountable than what we had available to us in the preliminary phases of the lawsuit. And so this case is not over. The fight for free speech is far from over. And now we have an anvil upon which to strike blows against the censorship enterprise, because we can look at the Supreme Court ruling and say what happened in 2020 and 2021 was absolutely government coercion resulting in free speech violations.
Got it.
So what is the next step then? Are you tracking on any case law that's coming?
Yeah, we're going to be back down at the trial court. We are crafting our discovery requests now. Again, we have every reason to believe that the censorship enterprise started at the White House, but it grew so quickly across a spectrum of bureaucratic agencies, and the volume of censorship demands being placed on big tech by the government grew so rapidly that the government had to develop a new censorship, a bureaucratic apparatus to manage the flow of censorship. And it's housed in the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA, within the Department of Homeland Security. So think about that for a minute. This is an agency created in the wake of 9/11, intended to protect Americans from foreign adversaries, that's now being weaponized to deprive us of our right to speak and hear freely. And the director of CISA was so bold as to say, despite the fact that, cybersecurity, infrastructure security, that way we're talking about software, databases, and bridges. But the director of CISA under Biden actually had the gall to say that, well, there's neurological infrastructure as well. I mean, it's absolutely more creative than what George Orwell ever could have come up with when he was writing 1984. And so that we have every reason to believe that censorship enterprise is still there, is still active, and we now have the tools in our arsenal to go after it.
Okay. And I want to move on to the next one here because there's a ton of them. And you're one of the most fascinating people on the planet right now. Your lawsuit against Planned Parenthood is moving forward. And it's based on the Project Veritas video here. Can you tell people about that? Because, again, if you don't live in the state of Missouri, sometimes you might not hear about this stuff. But what you're doing is so interesting that it's going nationally, and you're not just staying in the state of Missouri for most of this stuff. And to my knowledge, I don't know another attorney general who's doing cases like this.
Well, Missouri in the post-Dobbs world had a trigger law that went into effect that limited abortions to instances where the life of the mother is at risk, and it's a medical emergency. And really what that does is it protects human life present in a woman's womb. It protects babies whose hearts are beating and brains are functioning. And the left hates that. And Planned Parenthood has a documented history in the state of Missouri of ignoring health and safety laws, ignoring regulations, and violating statutes that relate to protecting the health and safety of women and children. And this is just one more instance. Back in November of 2023, a video surfaced where agents at a Planned Parenthood clinic in Kansas City were bragging about trafficking minors out of state to obtain abortions without any kind of parental consent and forging documents in order to evade scrutiny by parents or schools or a court system. And how they're bragging about how often they violated these laws. And so the Attorney General's office has enforcement authority over Chapter 188 that prohibits these kinds of behaviors. And we're going to take them to task. We filed a lawsuit to enjoin any future violations of the law. There is no other entity in the state of Missouri who has so willfully, blatantly, and continuously violated state statute. Any other organization, we would have eliminated their ability to do business in the state, and yet somehow Planned Parenthood keeps getting a pass. Not on my watch. Just last week, Planned Parenthood filed a motion to dismiss our lawsuit. The court rejected that and gave the imprimatur onto our judicial decree upon our lawsuit so that it can move forward and we can continue to press this case to protect the health and safety of children.
And in this video, it was Planned Parenthood staff telling a man pretending to have a 13-year-old pregnant niece how they could help her attain an abortion out of state. So this wasn't a person who was pregnant or wasn't pregnant?
The victim was not actually pregnant, in the same way that when a police officer pretends to be a minor online in order to determine whether or not someone's a sexual predator trying to ensnare children, trying to groom children, that's a legitimate law enforcement investigation. Same thing here. But there's another point to make. At age 13, children can't consent to sex at age 13 in the state of Missouri. And the clinic was a mandatory reporter under our child sex abuse laws. And so why was the clinic offering to conceal and cover up and conspire to traffic this minor out of state instead of reporting a sexual assault against a minor? I mean, again, this is just another example of a flagrant disobedience to state laws that are designed to protect and prevent future victims.
And then we'll move on to the next lawsuit here, because there was a ton of them. I wasn't lying at the top of the show here. You've also filed a motion to block Biden's illegal student loan handout plan, and that was another huge one. That one caught on nationally as well.
Well, that worked.
It did. And so what was the response from, again, the people of Missouri, and what have you heard from other attorney generals and people that have reached out across the nation in regards to this one?
Big win for the rule of law and the Constitution. Again, we had taken Biden to task when he submitted Plan A, his first unconstitutional illegal attempt to redistribute $500 billion in student loan debt. Congress never authorized such redistribution of wealth. The court found in June of 2023, just last year, that President Biden lacked any authority to do so. And if he was going to claim such authority or institute such a program, he had to get a bill through Congress. Congress has twice rejected such bills, once in 2019 and again in 2021. Certainly, Congress has not passed that kind of authorization between when the Supreme Court struck him down last time and now. So he submitted Plan B. Again, it would have cost us $500 billion, $500 billion in student loan debt. It would have cost Missouri taxpayers north of $45 million because of the Missouri Higher Education Loan Authority. And so we filed suit, and just last week got a nationwide preliminary injunction putting a stop to his illegal unconstitutional attempt to buy votes. But at what point does the mainstream media call this what it is? A constitutional crisis, where you've got the president trying to buy votes and on the stump bragging about his willful defiance of Supreme Court precedent.
Yeah, I mean, it's odd because post this immunity ruling, the narrative from the left is that, oh, Trump's a king now. Well, Trump's not even fucking president right now.
No.
So I guess the anticipation is he's going to win. That's what they're saying, right?
It's what it feels like. And your guy is still in there because King Biden was trending for a little bit as well.
Well, he's the one that's ignored the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court ruled that he didn't have the authority last year to do this student loan forgiveness bullshit and tax Americans to pay other Americans, right? Mm-hmm. And he was like, you know what, we're going to do it anyways. He literally said, we're going to do it anyways. Supreme Court may think this, but we're going to do it anyways. Okay, well, that's not legal, fuckface.
Yeah. And then what people were saying on Twitter in regards to the immunity was, well, Biden should just pass it anyways because he's going to be immune from any prosecution.
He's immune from prosecution, but the law is not immune from being struck down by the Supreme Court. Are these people retarded?
I think it is. I think we give too much credit to how smart people are in America, to be honest with you.
Maybe.
Your thoughts on it, I'd love to hear it here because, as you look at the division in this country right now and you read some of these comments back and forth, and again, we'll stick to this immunity thing, it applies to all presidents. And all presidents have done something bad along the way during their presidency. And if they were going to be held accountable for everything that they've done in office, I don't know anybody who would even want the job, for Christ's sakes. So, yeah, this is a crazy one to me, and I don't understand, the left going after this. Like, this was simple case law, in my opinion. But I'm glad you were able to get the student loan thing struck down. That's nuts, man. I mean, that's absolutely nuts. I was fortunate enough to have my parents help me pay for college, and I understand people who aren't. but it shouldn't be passed down to plumbers or farmers or anybody else to pay for somebody's law degree.
Now, you can join the military. Since you guys love Ukraine so much, go join the fucking army.
Yeah.
Tough guy?
Yeah, I didn't
See how
want
that goes
to.
for you.
And I was honest about it. I said, no, I definitely don't want to. I didn't even have to say I was gay, Andrew, you know?
Yeah, they already knew.
I was prepared. I was prepared to shoot a video with some of my buddies, but I didn't have to. You know, I was just like, all good on that. You're up for re-election this fall.
Yeah, man. Yeah, we're hard at it. Look, I parachuted behind enemy lines here and have been fighting the good fight for the past 18 months. We've got a spoiled rich kid from New York who moved to Missouri and is trying to buy a political office and using D.C. dark money to do it. And they're attacking me for being a veteran. I'm not part of their elitist club, and they don't like me for it. And so they're coming after me guns blazing, but we're going to fight back and win. I would encourage all your listeners and viewers to check out BaileyMo.com. That's our website. Follow us, help us out. If you live in Missouri, show up on August 6th, vote Bailey, and send a message that Missouri's not for sale to dark money groups. If you're not in Missouri, go register to vote. Go find a friend, family member, register them to vote, and take them with you to the polling place. Let's take back our country once and for all.
Well, the good thing is this one is pretty much, I would imagine, going to go down ballot on this. Coming up for Trump and the rest of you, so I think you're good, but you're also beloved.
Is a primary.
Oh, it's a primary. Forgive me.
Yeah, and there's 280,000 hunters in Missouri that aren't registered to vote, by the way.
Yeah, what I meant to say was there's a bunch of big GOP donors who are on your side who love you because you are beloved. So they're helping you out here. I think people see who this other guy is, and I don't think this is going to be close. What are the polls showing you right now?
Look, we've got a healthy double-digit lead, but there's still a lot of runway left here. We're in the fourth quarter, and we've got the lead. We got to control the ball, manage the clock, and punch it into the end zone. I need everybody's help to do that. You know, if you think you can support us, again, check out that BaileyMo.com website. If you live in Missouri on August 6th, make sure you get up, take somebody with you to the polling place, tell your friends, families, neighbors. Let's vote Bailey August 6th. Keep fighting and winning for Missouri. And again, send a message to these dark money groups that Missouri's not for sale.
Speaking of dark money groups, a lot of them are coming from overseas. We've seen some of these candidates funded by Israel. I know that you've been accused of saying Israeli spies are running for office now. Do you want to clarify any of that?
Yeah, I didn't know that accusation had been leveled against me, and I have no idea what basis anyone would have to say that.
Well, Israel, I'll say it, Israel spies on the United States more than anybody else in the world, right? We spy on them quite a bit as well. Mm-hmm. Everybody spies on everybody, you know?
Yeah.
I don't think foreign money should be involved in American politics, regardless of who the country is. And I think most reasonable people would agree with that, frankly. Well, it doesn't matter which country it is, if it's Israel or anybody else. Who fucking cares?
Well, let's take the election that just went on in New York. Who lost? The guy who lost his primary up there, who AOC was dancing around for. Yeah.
Yeah.
How much money was sent by that organization?
13 or 14 mil, I think.
Okay.
Something like that.
To go against
it's
him
AIPAC
there?
is what you're talking about, yeah.
Yeah. So it's getting weird out there. Do you think that should even be allowed? Because Dan and I don't believe in that. We don't think any.
I don't believe in Citizens United or any of that horse shit.
Yeah, we don't think any funding should come from outside the United States whatsoever. Is that something you'd potentially look to fight for in the future?
Yeah, I think in Missouri, you know, the problem we've got is that it really favors people who are individually very wealthy and elite because they can cut themselves unlimited individual contributions, and then their PACs can take dark money from coastal elites and hide where that money's coming from. I think that there's a lack of transparency in that. And I think when Missourians figure out what's going on and they realize I'm the hometown kid, the veteran, the father, the Christian who's been fighting and winning for the past 18 months, they're excited to support me. And when people find out that there's a kid from New York who slapped on a pair of cowboy boots to pander to Missourians as if we're ignorant, but doesn't have any of the shared values that we hold dear here in Missouri and has never really done anything in his life, and then is trying to just buy a political office because he's so desperate to be a politician, that really turns folks off. And when they find out it's funded by dark money, that makes the problem worse for him.
Yeah, and we've run into this problem before about 2,000 years ago. So a little more than 2,000 years ago, in the very early days at a certain point in the very early days of Athens. The Greeks tried a lot of different stuff. They tried an outright democracy, and after 2 years, they were like, fuck this. This is retarded. We got to do something else because the mob is the mob, right? We don't trust that. Then they changed, there was a point where any landowning male essentially could run for office. Fair enough, right? And then there was a point where any male, whether they were a landowner or not, could run for office. Fair enough as well. At the time, Athens, Greece as a whole, all the city-states, none of them paid people to be elected officials. It was an unpaid position, right? And what they found was only bored rich people then would run for office because everybody else had to go fucking farm or they would die, right? So they started paying people for public office. So I know we all hate paying taxes and shit like that, but the alternative is just to have Bill and Melinda Gates deciding for all of us to eat bugs, right?
Yeah.
So your individual contributions matter.
They sure do. And does your family ever read any of these message boards? Because I'm going through them. With the Israeli spies, the Missouri AG blames DEI for everything. I
do blame DEI for a lot of stuff. I mean, hey, look, I'll own that one. I mean, how dare these jokers, tell minorities that they're not smart enough and can't do it on their own and they got to have handouts.
Oh, whoa, sir. I'm sorry. Did you know that most black people in New York don't even know the word computer?
Yeah, they don't know
the Kathy Hochul.
Kathy Hochul, the governor there, says they don't know what a computer is. So,
what a crazy world we live in.
Yeah. Hey, were you involved in that transgender, what they call gender affirming care bullshit that just happened at Supreme Court? So the Supreme Court ruled that states banning cutting kids' dicks off is definitely constitutional. Why the fuck wouldn't it be, essentially? Were you involved in that one?
Guys, I've been on the front lines of this fight since I took office back in February of 2023 when my office launched the first of its kind investigation in the nation into these gender mutilation clinics that were harming kids based on no science or medicine. There are 0 FDA approvals for use of puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones, dangerous, powerful, life-altering drugs to treat gender dysphoria, or referral of children for irreversible gender surgery where they're cutting off body parts, forever amending and altering and destroying their ability to enjoy the full spectrum of adulthood. There's no science or medicine to back that up. We put a stop to it. We've been fighting that. We defended the legislature's law that they passed. We were the first state in the nation to successfully defend a law like that from legal challenge at the trial court level, and have been instrumental in leading the nation in this fight to protect kids. It looks a lot like 1930s and 40s when, the leading psychiatry of the day said that, lobotomies work to treat mental health patients, so let's cut out parts of their brain. Turns out that was an abomination. The same thing is true here, but it's harming kids. I'm proud of the work we've done to put a stop to it.
Now, you've also said the election was absolutely stolen in 2020. And I believe your exact quote here, I'm going to read it, was out of the 159 ballots that were cast, over 100 million were early or absentee, which I didn't know that. I didn't know that 100 million votes were. Do you still believe that to this day?
Here's what I believe. The election was stolen in the sense that it was rigged. Blue states changed the rules of the game at the 11th hour to maximize turnout for people that wouldn't have otherwise voted. And the sole objective there was to attack President Trump and forever change the trajectory and the history of this nation. They've now packed this country with criminal aliens that aren't legally allowed to vote, but yet somehow end up voting anyway. I have some serious and grave concerns. The self-evident integrity of the election process has been lost, and I don't know that we can ever get it back, and that's scary. So look at the things we're talking about now. We're talking about lawfare, taking President Trump off the campaign trail, potentially sentencing him to home confinement, probation, community service, or even worse, prison. We're talking about states unconstitutionally kicking him off the ballot. And we're talking about censorship where we can't hear from and talk to a presidential candidate. And now we're talking about a party pulling a presidential candidate on the Democratic side after most of the states have already had their primaries and caucuses. So you keep switching horses in the middle of the race and no one knows what's going on. Again, it violates the basic precepts of Purcell, which are that we shouldn't be interfering in the electoral process on the eve of the election after the campaign is commenced. And I'm deeply concerned about the integrity of the process moving forward.
Well, in addition to Purcell, there are federal laws about changing. So states have pretty broad powers with regard to how they conduct their own elections, right? Mm-hmm. Pennsylvania, it has to be, you have to change a law a certain amount of time before the election happens, right? Pennsylvania did it 6 weeks before their general election in 2020. which is completely unconstitutional. It is literally against the law, right, to do that. The case has been around this time last year got thrown out of another state court in Pennsylvania. I don't know when that one's going to make its way to the federal district courts and then finally to the Supreme Court. But that shit's got to change because that affects every election.
It does.
And we've had one. We're about to have another one since this, and it still hasn't been adjudicated by the courts. This seems like one that would have naturally made its way upward, right?
Mm-hmm. And I appreciate you answering all the questions here, by the way, because I'm going through the greatest hits on these message boards because I don't know what's real and what's not anymore. And I've been saying this on the show for, I don't know, the last 8 months because there's so much disinformation on social media. And there's also candidates that are kind of walking back statements from what they said in the past when it lives forever anyway. So it's not like you can get away from it. So I appreciate you answering the question. That being said, I know you have a re-election coming up in the fall. But with your notoriety and fame that is slowly starting to spread across the GOP and the Republican Party, if Trump were to get into office, obviously Merrick Garland would be gone as DOJ. Would that be a position that interests you if called upon?
Hey, guys, look, I'm myopically focused on serving the people of the state of Missouri and fighting and winning for Missourians. I've got 4 small children, 11, 10, 6, and 2. And during the school year, every morning I get up and I drive them to the school bus and I get to spend that time with them. And it reminds me why I do this job. And it's to protect that next generation's ability to enjoy the same freedom, safety, and prosperity that I grew up with in Missouri. And whatever role allows me to fight for those things is what I'm going to do. It's a privilege to get to do this job. I don't have any interest in being a politician. I want to be the attorney general because I care about my home state. Other people just want to play politics because it's an ego thing for them and they think they can buy political offices. And we're going to put a stop to that once and for all.
I wouldn't.
That's the only politician answer he's given today, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, it's very politician. Has Trump endorsed anybody in this election? Because I think your opponent is one of his attorneys, right?
Well, my opponent volunteered to work at a law firm that President Trump hired. So President Trump didn't hire my opponent, and he's only doing it to campaign in President Trump's name to cover up for the fact that he worked for Biden's crooked Department of Justice for 2 years and let fentanyl dealers and attempted cop killers back on the streets, to cover up the fact that he has prosecuted federal gun crimes but never actually taken a case to trial. He's never actually done anything in his life. So this is a kid that has some serious problems. While on my second deployment, while I was in Iraq for the second time for 15 months and I'm chewing sand overseas, he's at Princeton holding a supper club meeting with his ring knocker friends, serving alcohol to minors, gets busted and then threatens to sue the cops, and then complains that he had a mental breakdown over it. So if he's had a mental breakdown from getting a ticket for serving alcohol to minors, one questions his fitness to be Attorney General of the state of Missouri.
Sure. Bob, can you pull up a picture of this young man?
Yeah, let's see him.
I looked at a picture of him for the first time right now, and I drew some conclusions, and I want everybody else to have that opportunity as well.
It doesn't seem real. It doesn't seem like a real person here. I looked at a picture of him as well.
There's definitely no chin involved.
That's a good one, Bob. Go to the other one.
They all look the same. They all look the same.
Yeah.
See, now that's a guy, when you say serving alcohol to minors, it makes me very suspicious.
It sure does.
Frankly,
it sure does. But I'm assuming that was a while ago.
You can draw your own conclusions.
When did he move to Missouri, this guy?
Just in time to be able to run for AG. We know he was voting in Washington, D.C. and other places recently. He couldn't run for any other office because he doesn't meet the residency requirements, but the residency requirement for AG is much lower. So again, he's just showed up here with his brand new Italian leather cowboy boots and wants to buy a political office. People are seeing through it. I encourage folks to go check out wallstreetwillie.com. That tells the story.
Wallstreetwillie.com. That's what I used to call my penis at NYU. When I was in there for grad school, just for a short stretch, just for a short stretch. It was something fun and flirty for the ladies.
They would never let you near Wall Street.
No, they didn't. I looked at it once from the outside. I walked by it a few times when I lived there. What is wallstreetwillie.com? Is that the story of his life?
And it shows you where a lot of his money's coming from.
Okay. You can read aloud if you want to.
Bob, pull it up.
Yeah, pull up wallstreetwillie.com. Mine as well.
You know who Paul Singer is?
Yeah.
He's a hedge fund manager. Mm-hmm. It looks like most of it came from him.
From Big Paul, huh?
Leonard Leo, Club for Growth Action Committee.
Okay.
Ugh, boy.
Not great. Bob, what were you going to say?
These are, by the way, Club for Growth is one of these repube super PACs that's trying to get us into a war with fucking Russia right now.
Yeah, which I have zero desire for that.
This neocon nonsense.
Yeah, Andrew, having served, along with Dan overseas as well, when you see these funding for, wars being passed by the current administration here, do you just throw up your hands? And at one point, when does it stop? I mean, I guess we have to vote it out. But I mean, can that be something that's legally challenged? Because that's our own taxpayer dollars that are going to fund someone else's wars.
Yeah, it's absolutely a terrible policy position that we're spending billions of dollars to protect Ukraine's borders from a Russian invasion, but not spending any money or any time or any consideration to protect our southern border from the invasion that's going on there. Whose national sovereignty are more concerned about, Ukraine's or the United States of America?
Wait, you're saying there's something going on at the southern border here?
Well, I mean, look, guys, this is scary stuff.
I know.
1,500 deaths from fentanyl exposure in the state of Missouri, more than 1,100 reported incidences of human trafficking. That's the reported incidences. Those are harms directly attributable to the invasion at the southern border that Biden has turned a blind eye to and actually encouraged. And so, yeah, I mean, I think it's a poor policy position to be taking care of other people with American tax dollars before we take care of Americans. That's why President Trump is such a hero. He started the America First movement. I mean, it's a sad day in our nation's history that had to be a movement. That should just be inherent in every political discourse. And yet, thank God we had President Trump come along when he did, reset that conversation, and continue to have the courage and bravery to lead that movement despite some of these attacks. And that's why I am personally 100% behind President Trump and support his efforts and will continue to do so. The problem we've got is that under standing analysis, under Article 3 jurisprudential considerations, you can't raise a claim based on a taxpayer alone. You got to manufacture some other form of standing to show a concrete harm between an illegal action and what's going on. That can be a challenge. Certainly, taxpayer standing has been rejected by the court.
Gotcha. You sure you don't want to be the head of the DOJ? I think you'd be great at it, man. It's our first time meeting, and I'm all in.
Why would taxpayer standing be rejected by the Supreme Court? Why wouldn't the fact that I pay taxes, I don't understand that. Explain that.
Yeah,
to me.
the court has just said that like an irresponsible or illegal expenditure of tax dollars alone does not give rise to standing. Now, that's not true in the state of Missouri because our General Assembly passed a statute that provides for taxpayer standing for state claims in state courts. But at the federal level, there's a long line of United States Supreme Court cases rejecting standing. I think it's time that, first of all, let me say this. I agree with the concept of a limited federal judiciary under Article 3 cases and controversies requirement. But that being said, I think that when states are bringing claims, it's time that we relook those jurisprudential standing considerations and recalibrate that analysis to ensure that states can bring actionable claims to the United States Supreme Court and to the federal judiciary.
Yeah, it's a lot to unpack here because, we'll go back to the immunity thing, and everybody's saying we want to impeach the Supreme Court and all that other stuff, but yet we see some of these decisions like the one in New York that you're suing against. It feels like every judge has just taken it upon themselves to apply whatever law they want based on their party at this point. And good luck if you're not on that side of the aisle, especially down in Atlanta with what happened with Fannie Willis and those guys, that other case in Florida. You got some good judges, you have some bad judges. How do you correct this issue? Because who was the guy we brought up with the head wrap? What state was that in? It was a Somalian who was a judge.
Oh, that was a woman in Seattle.
That's right.
Yeah.
A woman in Seattle. It's like, who's putting these people into these offices and how do we correct it? Because it seems like the rulings here are just way, way out of bounds.
Yeah, again, I think we've got to agree on some basic principles about the rule of law and why we have it and how to interpret those rules. And that should be a litmus test for who is able to take the bench that serves rule of law principles. It provides consistency, clarity, and equal protection. When we start to think that judges are making subjective determinations, it undermines the credibility of the judicial system as a whole. And that's why consistency, clarity, rule of law matter.
It does, and it also matters who you vote for. Now, to my knowledge, Biden has put in more judges than Trump has in his last administration. How dangerous will that be for the country going forward?
We'll suffer for that. I mean, at the end of the day, if he's reshaping the judiciary in his image, then they'll all be asleep and gumming oatmeal at lunchtime. But, my fear is that they subscribe to this idea that the Constitution is a living, breathing document and that we've got to interpret statutes in such a way to help people. And like that, no, that is a policy-making determination that is left to the policy branches of our government, not the judiciary.
Yeah, I agree. Do you have a list out there of people like? Do you have a checklist like in Billy Madison where you're like, all right, we got to get these judges out of there because this has gotten too out of control?
I have not started such a list, but that's not a bad idea.
It's food for thought, because you can start in Missouri and then move nationally, and then at least we have a list of these people.
Or what? I don't. So, district judges, are they? Is that a lifetime appointment as well?
Yeah, the entire federal judiciary, the district judges, Court of Appeals, and Supreme Court.
So even like immigration judges, which I think about half of those are empty anyways, but...
So the ILJs are actually, immigration law judges are actually Article 2 judges.
Okay.
So those are like more of an administrative law position.
Sure.
Their appeal is to United States District Court. If a party is aggrieved by a decision of an ILJ, then they can appeal to U.S. District Court. And so the federal judiciary ends up getting involved, but the first determination is made by an Article 2 ILJ.
So the only recourse is congressional impeachment then?
To remove an Article 3 judge, that is correct.
And what are your thoughts on, a lot of people have said about Clarence Thomas that there needs to be some, like not the executive, the legislative branch needs to have some authority over the judiciary with regard to enforcing ethics standards and shit like that. I would love to have that. I mean, look, let's do that and have each branch have power over the rest for ethics standards and see what we find in Congress, right? Like, I don't know, fucking Chinese spies, for example, might be one that we should look into, like Swalwell, right?
Eric Swalwell,
what are your thoughts? I mean, it's obviously a violation of the separation of powers, but what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, that's a terrible idea. It's a violation of the separation of powers. The judges, there is a check and balance from the Congress to the judiciary. Number one, Congress can always pass new laws if the Supreme Court is rejecting current law. Number two, Congress can always, we don't have to have federal lower courts. Those are a product of statute. They're only, by Constitution, there only has to be a United States Supreme Court. And so theoretically, Congress, if they didn't like federal judiciary, could get rid of it. State courts are competent to hear federal claims. State courts are courts of unlimited jurisdiction, whereas federal courts are courts of limited jurisdiction. And so the federal courts can only hear questions involving parties from different states or issues involving a federal claim. But state courts can hear all those. So theoretically, if Congress didn't like the federal judiciary, they could get rid of it.
And speaking of getting rid of things, the FBI was essentially created by an executive order, which means it could be dissolved entirely by an executive order. Mm-hmm. That's fun.
Is that something you would be behind? We've talked about that on the show numerous times. A lot of these three-letter agencies potentially either cutting them in half or getting rid of them altogether. Where do you stand on that?
Yeah, there is no sanction in the United States Constitution for an unelected fourth bureaucratic branch of government. That is a form of soft despotism that flies in the face of the separation of powers doctrine. Certainly, our founders understood that freedom and liberty would be maximized if power was diffused over three co-equal branches of government. So to have a bureaucracy, this alphabet soup of federal administrative agencies that has lawmaking, law enforcement, and law adjudicatory power is antithetical to the United States Constitution. Slash and burn the administrative state, get rid of it. It's not helping us. It's just a government job welfare program.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, so 28 U.S.C. 533 allows the Attorney General to appoint people, right, to serve federal law enforcement purposes, right? Mm-hmm. But that federal law enforcement purpose is defined by the presidency. He controls the executive branch, right? So all he would have to do is get an Attorney General, I don't know, like Andrew Bailey, for example, and tell him, hey, shut it all down. Mm-hmm. We're starting over. Everybody's fired. Sorry. Right? And that would make America a better place within a few hours.
It would make it great again is what it would do, D'Anthony.
Drain the swamp.
Yeah. Boy, do we need it now more than ever. When is your primary?
Yeah, August 6th. So again, I encourage all Missouri voters, show up on August 6th. Find your polling place. Go vote Bailey. Make sure that Missouri is protected for Missourians by a Missourian. If you can check out baileymo.com, baileymo.com before then and now and then. Check us out. Love your support. We're going to keep up the good fight, guys. We've been fighting and winning for Missourians for the past 18 months, and I'm not giving up now. I'm not giving an inch of ground. No surrender, no retreat.
Well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to support you. We'll keep getting the message out. Vote for number4america.org. You can register to vote. Drag your dumbass friends to register. We're also going to relentlessly make fun of Will Scharf, which is a horrible name. He's a weird-looking dude. I don't like any of it.
Yeah.
I don't like any of it.
I don't either.
We're going to relentlessly make fun of him for the next 2 months.
We can't have Attorney General Scharf. And, that's not a thing.
No.
A Scharf sounds something like a long night of drinking / Taco Bell.
It's a shart barf.
Yes.
It's coming out of both ends.
It's coming out of both ends, and that's what that guy is.
That's
He's just
dysentery.
spewing nonsense out of both ends. Last question for you here before we get to the Drinkin Bro of the week. Who do you think Trump will pick as his VP?
Oh, gosh, that's a tough one. I mean, there's a lot of good options. Where can he...
That's actually true. For the first time in a while, there are quite a few good options for VP.
There are. They're just not really on his short list.
Some make more
sense
than the others. Well, you don't know that short list is real either.
That's true. That is true.
I don't believe any of that bullshit.
If you believe what you've heard or read, it's Doug Burgum from South Dakota is on that list. Snooze Fest. I'd like to hit the snooze alarm and go back to somebody else on that one. Ricky Rubio, little Ricky, little Ricky down there. The ears have gotten huge. I know that your nose and your ears grow the rest of your life. His is going at a double rate where they should study it in a lab somewhere. Marco Rubio down there. And not a fan of his. Love Vivek. J.D. Vance has popped up here. He did a great interview on Face the Nation on Sunday, but I think we already have Ohio, and I'm saying we as if I'm on the team here, the Republican team. What about you? Who do you think is out there that we're missing?
Yeah, I think, Tim Scott's an interesting choice. I think that the African-American community in the United States of America is waking up to the fact that they've been betrayed and let down repeatedly by the Democratic Party that promised them the earth and delivered nothing of practical good and is now more concerned about woke ideology than helping working families. And that the destruction that's been wrought in the African-American community by the Democratic Party is incredibly, devastating. And that under President Trump, there was the lowest rates of African-American unemployment. I think you see that key demographic kind of starting to take a second look at how they vote and being willing to put America first and get behind President Trump for the practical good to protect America for Americans, create jobs, revitalize industry, cause safer streets, all those things that, again, people just basically want. Those are kitchen table issues.
Yeah, Elise Stefanik has also been brought up as the last woman potentially available. We had Tulsi Gabbard on the show last month. She was fantastic. I thought that would have been a decent choice as well. The good thing about how bad that debate went last week is now he can genuinely just take his time and go all the way up to the convention where he doesn't have to race anything or throw in a surprise. So that helps at least in the long run, and hopefully he'll look at some of these other candidates. I understand the Tim Scott choice, obviously. That will help with black voters in South Carolina and getting out the message in the inner cities and stuff like that. But we'll see what happens. Now's the point in the show where we get to the Drinkin Bro of the week, which is someone who has inspired you or helped you become the person you are today. Who would you like to give the Drinkin Bro of the week to?
Oh, gosh. So many options.
Rob's mom.
Mary Fox.
Hey, Mary Fox is a warrior. That's a great person here. I had my former boss, Kelly King, who was the Warren County prosecutor, who taught me so many courtroom tactics, how to be a prosecutor. She now works for me and helps run my office. Shout out to Kelly King, my friend and mentor, who's now helping me lead the effort here at the AG's office. She taught me how to be a prosecutor, and I'm a better attorney for it.
Perfect. And then one more time, just because we want to make sure you're reelected, what dates can they go out and vote?
Yeah, August 6th is the Republican primary in Missouri. Check out baileymo.com for more information to sign up to help us out. Go vote Bailey on August 6th. Protect Missouri for Missourians.
Absolutely. And if any of our listeners in Missouri are out there and are listening to this show today, August 6th, Please go out and vote for this man. We need more like him in other states. We appreciate your time today. Best of luck in the election. However, I don't think you're going to need it. Would like to see you, though, potentially in D.C. one day. Maybe get the kids in some private schools out there. We'll see. I'm speaking it into existence right now, okay?
I want to come in studio next time, guys. That's a cool setup. Got to check it out in person.
Please do.
Anytime.
Yeah, it's open. You can booze. You can do whatever you want. Have some hard AF seltzers.
Are we open in Missouri yet? I don't think so.
Not yet. We're heading there.
there.
We're getting close.
Yeah.
We're getting close. We're in Illinois right now. As of August, we're heading to your state soon. So we'll either meet you up there or you come in studio. To everybody else, thanks for tuning in. Go to iTunes, rate the show a 5-star, and leave a quick review. Also, head on over to Spotify. It's just a 5-star, and you can walk away. And if you're out partying for 4th of July, please don't sharf yourself, okay? Leave it up to the guy who's going to lose to Mr. Bailey on August 6th. For D'Anthony Hollaway, I'm Ross Patterson. This is the Drinkin Bros